wish you well in what I am confident will be a very, very successful mission. And we could not achieve any of the goals that have brought us here together today without the vision and support of the New York State Department of State, and its leadership in creating a grant program designed to support New York's municipalities is the reason that we're able to be here today, folks. And for that reason, I am very pleased to introduce our secretary, who all of you know, a leader and a visionary who is taking the lead in addressing the needs of local government throughout the state of New York. So, Mr. Secretary, we're welcome you to
Thank you very much, President Jones. First of all, let me thank the President on behalf of the Governor and on behalf of the people of the state of New York. Not only is President Jones a leader of one of the great universities in our state, as he indicated, he serves as a co-chair of the Regional Economic Development Council here in the Capital Region. This is a priority for our governor, for his entire administration. We're looking for ways to improve the economy, create jobs, and make investments. And without leaving people in government, we couldn't do that. So please let the president This all started out here at McCarthy called and said, I got to see you, bring you the thing. Little did I know that. I said, I'm going to get a phone. Yeah. They will keep coming back. And now, when they do it, it's a quartet. And I cannot fend off 4 mayors. That's what I think I can. But really it is the power of the idea that was good to me and has me to provide financial support for this idea. Well, let me tell you how I would describe it. You know, we've had blight in our cities. You know, when the building goes down, then the next one on the block, and before you know it, you've got a couple blocks that are blighted. I can speak to that from my own experience. I come from a place called Brooklyn, which today is doing well, but went through a period of enormous blight. And there was nothing the mayor could do or the local leadership could do. They didn't know how to address that problem. It seemed like it was something natural that was going to continue to happen as people left that part of our city. But today, we live in a world in which we've got a lot of technology. We've got a lot of smart people, like people at the Center for Technology and Government. And it's time that we got those very smart people to help us figure out a way to predict when some of these neighborhoods, some of these blocks, some of these buildings are going to get into serious trouble. Because if we can do that, we can probably focus our very limited resources to try to stop that from happening. So what we come to talk about today and to celebrate is the fact that as a result of these smart mayors, as a result of the smart people at the university, we're coming up with a way of trying to stop blight. Imagine if we can do that. If we can do that here, we can do it elsewhere in our state, we can do it elsewhere in our country. So to me, this is a grand experiment, an opportunity to stop urban blight, at least slow it down, learn how to do it, develop the tools with which to do it. No better place to do it than with some smart mayors and some smart academics. What do you think? So So with that, let me say the check is in the mail. We will together get it done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Thank you, President Jones, for launching us both on this morning's press conference, but also on this wonderful initiative. Without both of your support, this would not be possible. And then there's a third person who you've already heard about, who is instrumental to this program, who, as the Secretary said, is what we call tenacious on this issue. And so let me introduce Mayor Gary McCarthy.
Thank you, Theresa. It's always nice to hear kind words. You're mayor, sometimes you don't always hear those words, but I want to thank everyone for coming out. President Jones, is a relative newcomer to the Capital Region, but he has come here with a vision. It's been a seamless transition, and I also have the opportunity to sit on the Regional Economic Development Council, and he is breathing life into that. Creating a vision in integrating the university, other resources that exist within the Capital District. And Mr. President, we are just so well served by your leadership and participation not only in this project, but so many of the great things that are happening throughout the Capital District. Mr. Secretary, yes, it took a couple visits to you. And again, Secretary Perales has functioned at a couple different levels. He's smart, he's able to size things up. He challenged us to refine our message. How do we really leverage some of the potential that is there? How do we make sure that this is going to be a success? Working with his staff. And so we look forward to that continued relationship where, yes, we appreciate the money, but we understand that we have to have a product that makes us look good, makes you look good, and is able to be utilized in other communities to really deal with those conditions of urban blight. And I correlate this to what DWI was in the 70s. Until you had that empirical data to better identify the problem, you couldn't have it. It's what domestic violence was in the late 80s. We all know, as the mayors sit here, my colleagues, we commiserate about the urban problems, but each community keeps some of the records a little bit different. We identify the problem a little bit different, and this will allow some standardization in a collaboration that will be, as opposed to commiserating, it'll really be results oriented. And so I thank you, both gentlemen, for your leadership. CTG, the staff here, Theresa, where's Megan? They're great people to work with. They just have that can-do attitude that makes us all proud to be part of any group that may be having the opportunity to work with CTG. And Peter Baines is here from the New York Conference of Mayors. We look to use this as an example that can be used by our sister cities across the state. And as President Jones talks about, really across the country, it gives us an opportunity to set an agenda not only regionally but statewide and even nationally. And with that, my partner in this, Mayor Ann Thane from Amsterdam, who's the immediate past president of the New York State Conference of Mayors.
Thank you all for being here today. The Secretary referenced the power of an idea, and certainly I'm so grateful to have been brought into this initiative by our sister city and by Mayor Gary McCarthy, because really it's his idea with CTG to do this and bring this to our state and our communities. I'm so inspired. And blight is also certainly our number one issue in our communities. I know I can look at the mayors here. The calls are coming in, and it's about the abandoned properties and vacant buildings, and and nuisance issues that we face that are associated with this. Now, certainly that is problematic for mayors, but it is very, very costly for this state. Very. And I think we came up with a figure of $60,000 per property over a 5-year span, which is enormous when you think in terms that I have 700 properties, Schenectady has 2,000 properties, Buffalo has 20,000 properties. That is a lot of dough. And this city can't, this state can't afford it. This nation can't afford it. So I am very grateful to be given the opportunity to help and solve this problem. I'm very grateful that Peter Baines is here from NYCOM. NYCOM represents 585 communities across the state, which represent 12 million souls out of the 18 million residents in the state. So that's a lot of impact on communities. And so with that, I am going to present another mayor associated with this initiative, right? Mayor Lou, or Lou Rosamilia. You did get that right, sir. And so, Lou, I'm turning this over to you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, and again, like everyone else has said, thank you for being here. When we deal with the situation of blight, it's not just one city's responsibility, it's an entire community. And as a result, we've expanded that now beyond the community into the entire state. And this is a start. It's an idea, an opportunity to bring together the 4 different cities of Schenectady, Amsterdam, Gloversville, and the city of Troy to come up with a common denominator. What are some of the common problems that we experience? How are we going to deal with it? But not only identifying it, but now sharing it. And that's what the whole purpose of this is about. As we identify situations, we want to make sure that the same individual, a landlord perhaps in the city of Troy, now moving to a different community because they're no longer invited and wanted in Troy because of repeated violations, decides to take their act on the road and brings it to Amsterdam, or brings it to Gloversville, or to Schenectady. What we're trying to do is set up that system so that information can be shared. So that when that person comes into your community, instead of investing a lot of money and time and then have them turn around and walk away or make the community worse off, you stop them right at the very beginning. Well, based on your track record, we thank you for looking at our city, but I think it's possible that you might be better off serving some other community because we know your track record. And that's what it's really about. So we really look forward to working with the other communities. I wanted to thank the Department of State. Thank you very much for funding this. Obviously, without your funding, it would not come to fruition. So we thank you very much, Secretary, Mr. President. We just thank you for everything that you do. And as I mentioned before, each city's got its own problems. The city of Troy is working very hard on a new code system of implementing zones and working within the zones so that each zone is being taken care of by a specific code enforcement individual, agent. And as a result of that, we're going to have a better understanding as to what's going on. So it's my pleasure right now to say thank you again on behalf of the city of Troy, the residents of Troy, and the residents of the state of New York for all your effort. And now I'd like to turn it over to our mayor, Mayor Dayton King from the city of Gloversville.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Secretary, and Mayor McCarthy, Mayor Thane, and Mayor Lou. The City of Gloversville is proud and honored to be involved in this initiative, and I'd like to recognize our Fire Chief, Tom Groff, who's here, our Finance Commissioner, Bruce Van Gendren, our Deputy Finance Commissioner, Tammy Wiedershan, who are members of our team. And I'd also like to thank our Common Council for agreeing to be a part of this collaboration. The City of Gloversville wasn't initially going to be one of the 4, but when one of the municipalities was unable to do it, Mayor McCarthy called me on my cell phone, I think one evening, and said, hey, Mayor, we got an opportunity for you. Do you think you'd be interested? And I just wanted to point out with Peter Bain's leadership at NYCOM, fostering those relationships between mayors. And Mayor Thane and I have worked together on a few things, and Mayor Lou through the Center for Economic Growth with Michael Tucker as well. So it's just great that we're all able to work together. I'd like to thank Mayor McCarthy for his leadership and reaching out to the Secretary of State and asking for those dollars. And now that we know how to do it, we'll get some more mayors and keep knocking on your door. So with that, again, I think my colleagues really hit on the parts that technology is key, and now that, in the 2015, everybody seems to have a cell phone and a camera on the phone, and really you can run our office from anywhere. We can be on Hawaii, Mr. Secretary, and run the city. So if we can fund that, we'd like to talk about that too, okay? So with that, I'd like to bring back Theresa Pardo, who's the Director for Center for Technology in Government, working here at the University of Albany, and thank her for her leadership. So Theresa, if you would finish us off, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor King.
Thank you.
And so I have the privilege of closing us down by providing a couple of more remarks and then opening the floor to a few questions. So I wanted to just let you know that the Center for Technology in Government has been operating for 20 years, and we have been working with governments all over the world to think about information and technology and how can we employ these assets to help solve really important public problems. This is a really important public problem. Urban blight. You've heard from the mayors, the Secretary of State, and the President about the criticality of solving this problem. We are honored at CTG to be able to work with mayors who are second to none, and we've met a lot of mayors around the world, and we're just really thrilled to work with a group that personify collaboration, commitment, passion for public service, the ability to step into the office of Secretary Perales and say, work with us, please, help us solve this problem, to engage Peter Baines from NYCOM and to explore the possibilities with Peter of bringing in additional passionate and committed colleagues from across the cities. And so again, CTG, 20 years working on problems of information and technology, paying attention to complex public problems. And here we have in the Capital Region some of the most passionate and committed mayors, some of the most passionate and motivated state colleagues, and then of course our wonderful president, who's absolutely second to none committed to the issues of public engagement and advancing the opportunities that the communities that we live in and that we connect with have available to them. So again, thank you very much to all of you. Thank you for the honor of allowing us to work with you and to employ what we very much thank you for, our academic brains, our the brains of our mayors, and the brains of the state of New York. So thank you very much. And again, thanks for joining us here today. And I'd love to open up the floor to questions for our guests. Respond to.
When will in each individual city, when will these systems be up and running? Are they already available, or is it still waiting for, I believe someone made a joke, the checks in the mail? When will the projects be available?
Great.
Be able to be implemented?
That's an excellent question. Gary, would you like to respond to that?
This is somewhat of an evolutionary project, and each of the cities where we have common problems have different systems in place, and some of us are ahead of each other in elements of code enforcement or dealing with blight. This project, over what'll be roughly 24 months, we will take those things, see what works best now, and also hopefully set standards that we can apply universally through our 4 communities, but across communities in the state of New York, and take what we do now, but move it to that next level so it is more results oriented. It allows us to better manage the resources of the communities and really prevents blight, and we're able to stem the decline of a property before it becomes a major issue and a major expense for a community.
Other questions? Sir?
You mentioned before that each city has their own system. Now, is there a plan back as far as
Do you want to take that one?
Again, the term system, it's how you would define that. Right now, the record keeping and the definitions we use are different within communities. And those things that we are required to report to the Department of State are somewhat superficial. I joke with the Secretary of State a couple of times. He will never have a local official come to him and say, we need more regulation from the state. This is a area that where the state could actually set some standards so that it becomes uniform across every community. And hopefully the design of this will be flexible enough so that the internal computer systems that we have, where Schenectady may have one and Troy has one and Gloversville's have another, that it will work across those different platforms and not drive up the cost of individual local governments where they would have to do major conversions. Even though it may set standards and opportunities where we could do some things, it's really designed to standardize that data collection, identify the problems earlier, and allow municipalities to manage their resources to remediate them before you're at the point of a demolition or you're dealing with a fire at 2 o'clock in the morning.
If I can just add to that, and as the mayor said, creating the conditions where information now is flowing across the various municipalities, right? So we don't need a single system to do that, but we need an architecture that allows the data to flow easily so any single mayor can know not only what's happening in their own city, but what's happening in cities in the region. Other questions?
I just,
Anne?
the secretary and I were just talking. I think it's important that everyone understand that right now they're going through the process of gathering the data that each community collects and then being able to compare and contrast and come up with the architecture that Theresa just referenced that will work between municipalities and between systems. So it will simplify and it will make our entire collaborative efforts more efficient.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today. We very much appreciate your attention and your support for this project. Have a good day.